Welcome to the podcast. We're glad that you're here. Those of you who are first-time listeners or new listeners, Caden is a special guy. His energy, his passion, but more than that, his message. We're excited to have you here today, Caden. Thank you for joining us on the Rural Education Leaders podcast.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate the opportunity. Excited to be on today.
Tell us about yourself and then tell us about the VITT Factor.
Yeah. So my name's Caden Vittorini. I'm 23 years old, and my company is VITT Factor, which I started about 3.5 years ago. My main driver and motivation was seeing the gap in our youth from the pandemic and isolation through technology and social media, and realize how many students are struggling, not just elementary, but middle and high school. And now fast forward 3.5 years from starting VITT Factor, I've been blessed and had the opportunity to impact over 50,000 students across around 110 schools, and just super grateful every single day to teach them these life skills. They're learning the school curriculum in school, but where I come in is I teach the life curriculum.
It sounds like some of that comes from your passion and personal experiences.
Yeah, it really does. And I always get vulnerable with these students when I go in front of them and share my story. And that's a big thing that I believe connects me with them is I shared my first 2 months of college were not good. I was going down a downward spiral. I hit rock bottom. I was hanging out with the wrong friends. I was getting in trouble. I was unmotivated. I wasn't disciplined. I was procrastinating. I was constantly negative towards myself, towards life. I wasn't doing well at all. I was flipped when I came home and saw my mom for the first time after about 2 months being away at college, and she sat me down for a truthful conversation. She looked at me and could tell everything was off. Caden, you're making poor decisions. What's going on with you? I could tell
Yeah.
you're not you. What path are you going down? And I believe when I go into these schools, I say, today you're going to have that truthful conversation with yourself, just like I did 3.5, 4 years ago. It's going to be hard, but I hope it's hard. That way you can become the best version of yourself. That way
Yes.
you can strive to go after your goals and go after your dreams. And it's going to start today. And the skills that I'm going to cover in this assembly is what's going to allow you to unlock becoming that best version and going down that path that you want to go down.
Thank God for moms that tell us the truth.
Yes.
Sometimes we need to hear it. How much more powerful are you seeing that your message is resonating with young people? It sounds like the ability to have a hard conversation with yourself as a young person is really
Yeah.
important.
It really is. When I go to these assemblies, I'm giving these students tough love because they know I want the best for them. Me being 23 years old allows me to connect with them easier. My age is relevant, it's relatable. My message can resonate that much easier. And when I do get into the introduction after my story, I say I was in high school about 4.5 years ago. I was in middle school
Yeah.
7 years ago. I understand what you're facing. I know what it's like to be a student during the pandemic, being a student at that time as well. I understand what you're going through. And that right there just really sparks something within these students. And knowing that what I'm going to cover today is going to be super powerful and beneficial for them.
I wonder if you see in your work the difference between connection and communication. I think a lot of
Yeah.
times in education we communicate, but it sounds like you're talking about something deeper. You're talking about that connection.
Yes, that connection is key. And giving them different analogies and telling them stories and keeping it interactive is where that connection ties in too. When I talk about the negative versus positive self-talk, I talk about the two wolves. When I talk about not comparing yourself to others, I talk about the apple to the mirror, going after your goals and becoming the best version of yourself. That's Winnie the Pooh. So having these pictures, having these stories, keeping it very interactive, brings students to the front. I will bring the microphone out to the audience. That's where the connection is built. I can come into these schools and talk at them, but I talk with them. And when I speak in front of these students, whether it's a group of 50 or a group of 2,000, it's an experience. And that's what allows me to build that connection.
Yeah, that experience piece is so important. We both have teachers that could have taught us, for me, it was English, and they could have taught me poetry and been like, here's the form and the structure. But I had a great teacher who helped me experience poetry. More so than content, you're talking about life in general. Tell us about this generation, Caden. What do we need to
Yeah.
know in rural education about this generation as you're going into these schools with parents, teachers, principals,
Yeah.
community members? What do we need to understand in rural education about this generation of students?
Yeah. At the end of the day, Will, these students feel alone. And it really is sad to see they don't always express it or talk about it, but giving them that hope that they're not alone. And that's where I believe I come in and give these students that vision that it is possible. Someone like you comes in, or these other teachers or counselors, they need that person in their life, just like
Mhm.
my mom was for me. Everybody has that person that saw something in them. Oh, my brand came from. My grandma, who I call Tia, since I was 2, 3 years old, told me that I had the it factor. So imagine someone telling you at a
Love
young
that.
age, Caden, you have the it factor. I see something in you. Like you have so much potential. That's where the name VITT Factor came from. It Factor, Tia telling me that, and then my last name being Vittorini. That's where VITT Factor comes from. So getting into these schools and saying, hey, here is your it factor. And what's great too is getting these students to not just only focus on what they need to work on, right? The limitations, things that are holding them back, bringing them down, but what are you good at? Right? What are your strengths? How can you double down on what's already working for you?
Mm.
Because a lot of these students are constantly focusing on what's not going their way. I'm always unmotivated. I'm always negative. I'm not confident. I don't have the communication skills to build friendships. Let's talk about this. What are you good at? Let's discuss
Mm.
those strengths. Let's discuss what you are good at and seeing how you could tie that into some areas that you are struggling with.
It sounds like you're talking about building confidence, right? For so long, education was a place where kids could go to build confidence, right? They
Yes.
could learn skills, they could learn tools. What you're talking about, though, is not just confidence in content. You're talking about confidence for life that sets them up
Yes.
for more than a high school diploma, more than a certification, something that they can carry with them into the future.
Definitely. And I believe that self-confidence and believing in who you are does start in the mind. Your self-talk is the one thing you control every single day. So if you're going into a job interview, a test in school, going to make a new friend, going into a sport club activity, if you're in a negative mentality and letting that negative self-talk take over, you can't expect to be confident, right? You can't expect to just believe in yourself walking into that room or whatever you're about to face. You have to focus on that positive self-talk, right? Making sure you're feeding the positive wolf.
Caden, I wonder if you're seeing that with students, but also rural education leaders, right? I'm thinking
Yeah.
about administrators, but I also want to give a huge nod here to teachers, right? Teachers
Yes.
also have to be that voice of confidence for students. I wonder if you're seeing that in your work.
Definitely. And working with some teachers and administrators as well, that's a big thing. These teachers are second mom or dad because how many hours these students are with them every single week,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a
Yep.
long time. So they need that spark. The teachers do a great job of saying, hey, I get this subject is tough for you. I get you're struggling, but let's get into the right mentality. Let's bring you that confidence. Let's see that little progress. The 1% better every single day progress is my motto. And that's what will help these students bring them more confidence.
That's powerful. What a sacred calling it is to be entrusted with the lives of such precious people as our students. Caden, you talk about face to face communication. Get practical with that. What does that look like? What do you like to tell students about face to face communication?
Yeah, I believe communication is one of the most underdeveloped skilled, but the most valued. I always say the students can text but can't talk. They can comment on social media but can't connect. And that right there really gets these students to realize I don't feel confident walking up and introducing myself. Some ways that I break it down is the types of questions that you're asking. Open-ended versus closed-ended. I discussed starting with a compliment to build that connection, to break the ice, body language and first impressions. How are you presenting yourself? How to keep these connections going? A lot of these tips and techniques that I'm covering within these schools are little tidbits that these students can take with them beyond the assembly or the workshop and apply it in their daily life. Communication is so powerful. Think about how many students talk on a daily basis and imagine the future. So you might as well strive to become the best possible communicator. That way you can build friendships, build those connections, and it'll translate into more confidence, more opportunities.
Definitely when I was in school, the work that I do, and so do you. I'm sure it's different even from 4 years ago during the pandemic when you were in school. It's interesting to think about all the access that kids have in technology. But what have we lost in terms of the personal side? What have we
Yeah.
lost in terms of the person to person side of things?
These students are always on social media. They're scrolling, so their attention span, they're scrolling on 10 videos in 5 seconds and they don't even remember what they just scrolled on. Yes, they can text, be in group chats, or comment on each other's social media, but when it comes to face communication, that's where that gap and that's where I come in and put that bridge in and say, hey, here's that lack of communication skills and how you're feeling right now. Here are tips and techniques you can apply to bridge that gap to now be able to walk up to someone with confidence, right? Whether you want to sit with people at lunch or to make a new friend or even just to advocate for yourself towards a teacher, right? Maybe if you're confused or unsure about something, having that confidence to approach an adult is powerful as well.
Man, that's so good. And it's funny because we're like, man, these skills are so needed. We got to have these kids learn these things overnight. But that's not your approach, not
Nope.
overnight. It's this
Nope.
1% idea. Tell us about that.
Yeah, a lot of these students want instant gratification. They want things to happen now, whether it's goals or dreams. It takes time. So my motto, 1% better every single day, means waking up every morning and ask yourself, how can I become better than I was yesterday? What do I need to focus on today towards myself as an individual, building friendships as a student? How can I become 1% better today? And if you have that motto you really are striving towards, imagine what the future could look like a month, 6 months, a year down the road.
Yeah, if you just take that model and you put it in leadership terms, right? And you say, over the next 7 days, I'm going to be 1% better, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the week, I'm a stronger leader than I was when I started the week. Translate that to a student's life. That impact over their life is tremendous.
Yeah. Once these students see the progress, it's addicting. They see their grades going up. They see themselves growing their confidence, their positivity. They're making new friends. They're being looked at as a leader. That's what drives them is seeing that little progress. And then they want to continue that over time.
That's so powerful. What I love that I hear out of you is a message of hope to a generation that so often does not have that message. It is often this kind of, oh, watch out for this generation. But that's not your message at all. Your message is, hey, you're capable and able of becoming someone who can make an impact in others' lives.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the biggest thing is people always have these misconceptions about generations. They're growing up different, right? They're facing different things. Let's bring all the generations together and help them. And that's where my age comes in and tries to help that younger generation.
It's awesome. You're a champion. Hey, tell us a little bit. You've been in a lot of schools, you've been in a lot of different states all over the country, and you've also had access things like your TED Talk, right? All of these different areas that you've have had influence. What is one moment that you look back and say, this is why this work matters to me?
Great question. There's the thing that I do in the school assemblies, and it's talk about know your value. I have a fake dollar bill. I ask them how much is it worth. I step on it, ask them how much is it worth, and I rip it apart. Ask them the worth of it. And if I tape back together, it's worth $1. I tell these students that I want them to know their value. That in life, people are going to try to crumble them up, step on them, and rip it apart by telling them that they're no good, telling them that that goal, that dream they have for themselves, it's not possible. I ask these students, raise your hand if you've ever been told something like that. And all the hands go up. And so the moment that really drives me is I pick out one student to bring it to them to the front. And I gave him a real dollar bill signed by VITT Factor. And I do this at the end of the assembly because I talk with a lot of different students and I pick a student that I believe really needs to hear this. So I bring him or her to the front and I have them hold up the dollar bill and I talk about them in front of the whole school, them knowing their value. In this case, maybe, Will, I want you to know your value. People are going to try to crumble you up, step on you, and tear you apart. But I want you to remember your value every single day. So put this dollar bill that you could see it every morning that whatever you face that day, you have the power to pull yourself out of that. Put it on your mirror next to your bed. And tell these students you can do the same. Get a real or fake dollar bill, sign VITT Factor, and put it somewhere where you're reminded of your values. That's the one moment that hits home to me because I've had students cry up on stage, seeing them walk back, all the students giving them high five, knowing that kid right there has a spark of hope after that moment. And all the students are going to probably congratulate him or her on getting that dollar bill and coming to the front for the knowing your value moment.
Man, that's awesome. It's so funny. A lot of times at rural education leadership, we talk about superintendents, we talk about principals, we talk about
Yeah.
teachers. What I love is you're talking about students. You're talking about the future of our country, the future
Yes.
of our communities. And there's nothing more central to rural education than stewarding the future of your community. And my community being such a small school, small community, our kids are going to stay here. They're going to contribute. They're going to help. What a powerful message for students who are in rural areas to know their value.
Yeah, definitely. And within your case, Will, they're going to stay in that community and they're all going to know each other. And a lot of the message that I tie in is you are all one school. Yeah, you might be different grades, genders, backgrounds, all these different things, but you are one school. You should want the best for one another. You should help each other, which should bring you joy and happiness when you see each other succeed or get better. So I tie that into the messages that I cover going in front of these schools. So that would be perfect with your school because these students are staying together through maybe the rest of their lives.
We do a little thing in our yearbook of the kids who've been here their whole life.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
always so
awesome.
special. Oh, it's so special to see that photo and the kids that are raised by our community. Let's talk about you as a leader. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit. You've got a lot going on between your business, between your impact, between your planning. How do you keep the main thing?
It's my why, my driver every single day. Seeing how many students that I'm impacting every single day is what drives me and leads me to become even better. I always say I can't be a fraud. I'm teaching these students, whether it's a one-on-one coaching session or a small workshop or a massive school assembly. I'm teaching all these skills. I'm covering all these different areas, and I have to focus on that in my own life. So I'm always working to better myself as a leader. That way I can replicate that when I'm speaking in front of these students or even just a one-on-one coaching session.
As you're thinking about kids, what would you tell them? These are two non-negotiables for your life, right? If you want to be someone who's confident, someone who's connected, someone who cares, someone who's going to grow up and give to the community your gift, right? What
Yeah.
are those two non-negotiables that you would help with them with?
Yeah, so I would say identify your vision and anti-vision. What do you truly want for yourself? What do you want to achieve in life? Who do you see yourself becoming? What's that vision? But on the other side, that anti-vision, what's the life that you want to stay away from? Who do you not want to see yourself become? And that will start to trigger these students' mind through actions, habits, their mentality on things they need to start doing today to go down that vision path and to stay away from that anti-vision. So really just identify your vision and anti-vision, one. Two, a big thing that was always talked about, but truly is so powerful, who you surround yourself with. It
Mm.
is so important. You have to surround yourself with the right friends. Every single day, I see students that are getting in trouble, not because of the type of person they are, but who they're surrounding themselves with. I see how I was in late high school and early college when I was surrounding myself with the wrong friends, how that was rubbing off me on a negative way. So that's a big thing too, because you become the average of the five friends you spend the most time around. If you're hanging around people making poor decisions, but if you're hanging around people that are unmotivated, negative, right, don't have any drive towards goals, it's going to rub off on you. Or if you have friends that are making poor decisions, getting in trouble, or just overall just not doing things that move them forward or holding them back in some way, it's going to affect you. At a young age, it's so powerful because these students are starting to grow up, they're starting to find their different friend groups, and they have to identify who they're surrounding themselves with and have that truthful moment to be like, hey, yes, this is a funny friend. He's cool. I like hanging around him, but he's not good for me. He's someone that I shouldn't be surrounding myself with because I see the negative effects it's having in my own life.
Those are some of those lessons we learn as adults. And for you to be able to take them to kids and say, hey, learn them now, life is going to look so much different. All right, let's talk about rural leadership for a minute. If you were to
Yeah.
look at rural leaders and you were to say, hey, guys, here's something you can do, that 1% on your communication to build trust with people you're leading. And leadership is every level, not just positional. What would that be? What would you encourage people to do in their communication to build trust with others?
I would say taking responsibility. That's a big thing that I believe it starts with maturity and leadership is taking responsibility. It's so easy to blame and point the finger and say, I'm not where I want to be because of him or her. This is at any age. This could be a fifth grader. This could be a teacher who's 40 years old. Taking responsibility is a big start towards leadership. And if something doesn't go your way, instead of blaming and pointing the finger, hold yourself accountable. Take a step back and reflect on what went wrong. Say, this did not go my way. This was tough for me. How can I come back even stronger? How can I learn from this? How can I take responsibility and hold myself accountable? So this is powerful because this is a big step towards maturity, whether you're in elementary school or maybe a principal or superintendent.
I always watch these episodes with my son and my two boys and my girl Josephine. And that right there is 100% worth the watch. Just the ability to say, I'm not a victim. I'm somebody that
Yes.
is in charge of my life and I can make action toward it, right?
That's the biggest thing too, not having that victim mentality. Things are never going my way, or I'm always making mistakes, or I'm always failing. What part are you playing in that? I'm not doing well in the classroom because my teacher doesn't know how to teach, or the subject doesn't make sense. Reflect on yourself. Maybe you haven't been paying attention in class. Maybe you haven't been putting the effort towards study. Maybe you haven't been advocating for yourself and communicating with your teacher. Identify what
Yes.
you're maybe not doing, take responsibility to come back even stronger to get that grade to where you want it to be.
The control which you can control, right? Caden, tell us, how can we stay connected with your work? Because what you're doing is important. It's empowering an entire generation to stay connected, to have a big impact.
You could stay connected with me on all social media platforms. So VITT Factor right here through Facebook and Instagram, even on TikTok as well. And my LinkedIn is Caden Vittorini. And of course, my website, which is www.vittfactor.com. Got a lot of information about topics, a lot of recommendations, videos, photos, all the different things that we've done in the past 3.5 years and the overall impact that we've made on the next generation.
I love that. We'll put all those links in the video description. Last question. I never give this one out early, but it's last question. One of the things we're building a tradition in rural areas, you go down a highway and you see a big billboard, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
that billboard, there's always a message, right? So as we're driving in this car, Caden, as we're winding down this podcast and we're seeing the billboard on the side of the road, what does
Yeah.
Caden's billboard say?
Just short and sweet, it's possible. And I believe this goes for everybody, whether you're a student or someone who's much older. It's possible that whatever you have faced in the past, are currently facing right now, or might face in the future, that you have the power to pull yourself out of that. And whatever that looks like for you, whatever you have to take action on, or better habits you got to get into, whether it's physically or mentally, it's possible. And this right there gives whoever's driving on the highway and sees that billboard that hope.